Life is like a game of chess, changing with every move. So when you see a good move, look for a better one. One bad move nullifies 40 good ones. Live life like you're playing chess. This is Bearded Viking Woodworks, episode 19 of Stuck on Sawdust. Buckle up. Rock stars, we're gonna dive straight into this video and start making some sawdust. Today, we're gonna be building this badass handmade chessboard. But I'm gonna put a twist on it and put our own spin on this thing. We are going to be making our own chess pieces out of wood. This is going to be exciting. So you know what time it is. Meet me at the table saw. So where do we start? I have no idea because I've never made one before. However, I've got some 3/4 inch plywood that we're going to use for the actual base of this piece. And I've got some of these 1.5 inch rips that I made out of some walnut. And then I've got this white oak picket that's 1.5 inches. I'm going to go for the end grain look, and the walnut and oak will give it the best contrast. What size do we cut these? I'm thinking of at least 1/4 inch for each piece, and we need 64 pieces altogether. So I need 32 of the walnut and 32 of the oak. So let's start by cutting our squares. So we're just going to go ahead and make a new miter sled. I can't really get around it. So we're going to use this piece of plywood, and I am going to cut the runners for this sled right now. And the best way to dial this in is with some calipers. All right, so these are pretty damn tight. Damn, this one's a little tighter. We're just gonna trim them down just a fuzz with our hand plane. All right, let's check them now. All right. Oh yes, no slop at all. That's what we want. So now let's cut our height. We're just going to scribe that line right there, and we're going to cut right to that line. All right, so we'll just line up the back of our plywood with our table face right here and push our runners back to where they're flush as well. All right, so let's add a brad nail once we get everything flush out here, right into our runner. And then we'll make sure this is lined up and pop a brad right there in that runner. And then we'll come to our front, pop a brad in his ass, and pop another brad right there. Now we'll take our piece of cherry and we'll pop 2 nails at one end. All right, so I popped 2 nails into our cherry backer. And now what we'll do is make a cut right here where our kerf is, and then get our cherry square. Let's get a clamp ready. And let's line up our square right here to make sure we get a 90 with our cherry and our kerf of the blade. I like that right there. So we'll clamp this tight. And we will pre-drill a couple of holes into our cherry. Since it's a hardwood, it wants to split really easy. So to avoid that, we'll drill a hole. And we're using 1.25 inch screws. All right, we're good to go. We just need to finish our cut. That's perfect. Okay, back to the video. All right, to help our miter sled glide a little easier, we're just going to add some paste wax right in our miter slot. Much better. We're going to use a stop block, and we'll use a spacer, and we want about 1/4 inch. So let's square up one end of our walnut first. And then for each cut, we'll use this little 1/8 inch spacer here. We'll butt it into our stop block, butt our piece into the spacer, and then pull that spacer out and just make this cut nice and slow. And there we have our first square. Now we just need to do that 63 more times. Oh boy, this is going to take a while. So I'll speed this process up. So you saw I took my clamp when I got a little too close for comfort to hold it in place, and I just cut it down to where I feel the most comfortable with my clamp. Luckily, I have another piece of my stock right here ready. So that's 17 pieces, so I need 15 more pieces cut. All right, so now that we got all of our pieces cut for our board, we'll go ahead and lower this blade, take a sip of coffee. Oh, that's good stuff. Let's go ahead and set our actual board up here that we're going to be using. Let's check for which side is square. Okay, so this side looks good. So we'll start our pieces on our left bottom. And we'll just play around with it until we see a grain pattern that we like. Oh no, I'm missing one piece. How did I do? Oh, there it is. Woo! That was close. All right. That is badass. So I got a couple of pieces of plywood. I'm just going to nail to the very edge right here, just to kind of help hold these pieces in place while I glue everything. And then I'll come over here and nail one on this side. Now what I want to do is kind of just shift everything over tight. That's looking pretty damn good. Just double check for square. Oh man, that is perfect. Check this side for square. Okay, so now what I want to do is take and nail a piece on this side and then this side. All right, so let's nail this piece right here. And I'll nail this piece right here. All right, so that should have it nice and secure. Now I just want to pop my pieces out. Oh, that hurt my feelings. It looked so beautiful. Now let's get our blower. And we will blow out our area. We don't want any dust in there. Now the fun part, guys. All right, so I'm gonna take a piece of sandpaper and kind of hold it on my piece here. I just want to clean up some of these hairs. That way, everything is nice and tight. Now we're gonna speed this up a little more. All right, let's blow this back out and add a bunch of glue. Oh God, that might have been too much. All right, let's start adding our pieces in. That is marvelous. Gotta fix one little gap. There we go. I'm just gonna cut right across here. And right across here. I'm loving it. Now we'll take and get this piece of plywood cut so we can put it on top of this and clamp it down. Set that right on top of there and just put some weight on it. Oh yeah, that should be just fine. All right, guys, we'll let this dry overnight and I'll see you back here in the morning. So here we are a day later and everything is dry. We're just gonna take our frame apart. All right, so now what we wanna do is just cut our plywood away flush to our pieces here. Now what we want to do is take our pencil and just go across our surface here and get this thing sanded down, making sure it is nice and flat. That was 80 grit. Now we'll use some 150 grit. I've got a couple of micro gaps in here, and I'm just going to fill those with some glue and some sawdust from sanding, and then sand it one more time, and that should cover up any micro gaps that we have. So let's go ahead and add a dab of glue. You don't want to do too much. Just where your gaps are. This is a tip on filling micro gaps. No happy gappies. They're actually really small gaps, so we did pretty good with our pieces. Now just take a paper towel. If you got some water, go ahead and get it damp. And just wipe off the surface. All right, so now just take your little dust bag off of your sander and just tap it so some dust comes out, and put it right over that glue where your happy gappies are. And then you can take another damp paper towel. You don't want it too wet. Just kind of dab it and move it around in a circular motion, kind of getting all that dust in those happy gappies. And watch those happy gappies disappear. Let that sit for about a minute and a half. Okay, now we'll take our 150 grit and hit it one last time. We're gonna let this sit here and dry up and let all that moisture get out of it. While we do that, we'll go ahead and build our frame around this piece. And we're just gonna do a simple 45 miter around this piece. All right, so I've got my pieces here, and we are just going to take and measure. We got 12 1/16 there. 12 1/16. Just want to double check. Yep. So we'll go ahead and get our first piece cut at 12 1/16. And that's going to be short of our 45-degree miter to short of our 45-degree miter. Now we'll just glue this frame up, get it installed, and then the fun part. We're going to make some chest pieces on the table saw. So here I've got my frame glued up and taped together with some blue tape. I'm going to add a little chamfer right on the very edge of my actual chessboard. And I'm going to have the chessboard sit just proud of our frame. So let's go ahead and head over to our router table and we'll add that chamfer while this dries. Alright, so we've got our chamfer added. And I went ahead and cut a couple of strips at 7/16 tall. That way it lets my piece sit proud of my frame. So we're going to go ahead and glue the frame onto our actual piece. So we'll just add some glue in here. Set this back on our piece. Now we just want to clean up this glue squeeze out. Make sure we get it all cleaned up. Okay, so what I've done off camera was got all of the pieces that I need created on the table saw. So we got our king, our queen, our rook, our bishop, our knight, and our pawn. I went over a couple designs and this is the one that I really want to go with. So I'm going to get us set up to make these on the table saw. So let's get into it. Alright, so our pieces are 5/8 by 5/8. All of our back pieces that go along here, like the king, the queen, the rook, the knight, and the bishop. The pawns are a 1/2 inch by a 1/2 inch. And we'll cut our pawns last because they're easy. Now for the rook, it's just a simple cut right at the top down the center of each side. And I'll go ahead and show you how to get these made on the table saw. I need 1 more out of oak and then 2 more out of walnut. My blade height is set at 1/8. And we got a little jig here. It's just a simple jig that I have made to just carry the piece across the blade with it vertical like this, which just makes it safer. It's super easy to make. Take our marking wheel and come over about 3/16 and then make a mark on the top of our oak here. And then make a mark on this side as well. All the way around. That way we know where we need to cut. Once you make that mark, go ahead and line it up with your blade. We're going to cut to the inside of that mark. And that should leave you with this. So you just want 4 squares on either end for your rook. So let's cut our walnut rooks now. All right, so we've got our pieces cut. And I just cut on one end of this walnut and then on the opposite end as well. And we'll clean up all these little hairs when we go to put some finish on it. Now keep your blade height set at an 1/8 inch. Grab a miter sled of some sort. And we're going to cut this little mark right here, right across the top of this rook. So I'm going to pull down from my top at 3/8 of an inch, and that's where that cut starts. So I'm going to use a stop block for this since I've already got it set up. All right, now that our stop block's set up, we'll just butt our stop block and make these cuts on all 4 sides. And these are going to be 1.5 inches tall. And there's our rooks. Now we're going to make our knight. First, we'll go ahead and get our ears cut out. And we'll do that with the same jig we used on the rook. Our blade height is 1/2 inch. And we're going to pull over the same distance with our marking wheel at 3/16 and make a mark on the 2 sides of your piece. Just like so. That side and then the opposite side. And you want to cut out right in between those marks. After making that cut, you should be left with something that looks like this. So let's head over to our miter box and we'll get the ears cut. Okay, so to get our ears cut, they are on a 60-degree angle. If your saw doesn't go up to 60, I have a jig that I make in a video that I'll leave a link to in the upper right-hand corner of this video right now. However, you could either do the cut with that jig, or you can just do it with a 45-degree angle and that'll work just fine. It just won't be as steep. So basically, you just pull over 1/8 inch right here, make a mark, and that's where you start your first 60. So line up that 1/8 inch mark with your blade and make this cut. Now, just line up your blade with your long point right here and make the cut on the back side. And there's your ears. So now we'll head back to the table saw to get our neck cut out. And this will be on a 12-degree bevel. And we're going to be using our opposite side of our miter sled. And now we'll make this cut. And the horse will be cut from the top of the ears down to the bottom 1 5/8 inches. So let's head over to the miter box and I'm going to get these cut real quick. And here's our knight. So while our table saw is still on that 12 degrees, we are going to make our bishop. And it's basically 4 sides cut at this 12-degree bevel standing up. So let me demonstrate that right now. So I'll pull over an 1/8 inch, make a mark on all 4 sides. All you gotta do is line this up with that blade one time and then cut all 4 of your sides. Go ahead and just clamp it. That way you don't risk getting hurt. Turn your blade back to 90. And you want to drop your blade down to an 1/8 inch. Go ahead and get your miter sled set up and make this cut all the way around it. Now our bishop is 2 1/4 inches in height. So let's go ahead and cut these down at the miter box 2 1/4 inch from the top to the bottom. And there we have our bishops. Now we're going to make one more cut right down the center of the front of the piece. And there's our bishops. And that cut that we made across the whole top of this piece right here is at 3/8 of an inch right to our blade. For the queen, we've got a simple 45 cut on all 4 sides at the top. So let's go ahead and get that done. And I've already got my oak queen, so I just need to make one of them out of my walnut piece. So I'll turn my saw to a 45 and I'll come in right at an 1/8 inch and make that miter on all 4 sides at an 1/8 inch on each side. Just like so. Now we'll take it over to the table saw and put a cross right on the top of it. So we'll keep our blade height right at an 1/8 inch and we'll line up the center of our piece with the blade and make one cut through one side and then spin it and make that last cut. Just like so. Now leave your blade height at that 1/8 inch and we'll make this first cut right here, and that is going to be on all 4 sides, pulled down from the top a 1/2 inch and make this cut on all 4 sides. And then you'll pull down 7/8 of an inch and make this second cut on all 4 sides. And the height of our queen is going to be 2 5/8 of an inch. Now the king is a bit different. So let me demonstrate how to get your king. So you want to turn your bevel to 12 degrees and you'll want to pull in 3/16 of an inch. So we'll take our marking wheel at 3/16 of an inch and just mark each side, all 4 sides. Just line up that blade with one of your marks and you shouldn't have to move it any more than that first time. And you want to cut to the inside of that 3/16 mark. And you should be left with something that looks like this. Now pull down from the top 5/16. Put your bevel back to 0. Set your blade height to 1/8 inch and make this cut on all 4 sides. Now pull down from the top 1 1/4 inch and make this last cut on all 4 sides. And the height of your king is going to be 2 7/8. Make that cut at your miter box. And there's our 2 kings. Now as far as the pawns go, those are pretty self-explanatory, so I'm not going to demonstrate cutting all 16 of these things. They are 1 1/4 inch in height, and in width they're a 1/2 inch by a 1/2 inch, and I cut all 4 sides at an 1/8 inch depth at the bottom of them, pulling up a 1/4 inch from the bottom. So go ahead and get yourself 16 of these cut, and I'm going to do the same, but I'm not going to bore you with doing all that cutting. Wow, rock stars, this thing turned out crazy cool. I did not expect it to turn out this awesome. Now, this project is perfect for a gift for a family member, a friend, but I also want y'all to take a look at the profit aspect of building one of these. Look at what these things are going for online. That is absolutely stunning. And I totally understand the cost right there, because this thing took quite a bit of work to make. And I used to be intimidated by it because I've seen many of them online, and I'm like, that just looks like so much work, so much time invested. However, it took me a total of 2 hours and 27 minutes to build this thing completely. And that was taken into account filming. Well, I don't plan on posting this one, but I just wanted y'all to see the profit aspect. And the profit and the cost of these things can create you a big ass profit. Well, that does it for this video, rock stars. Until next time, I hope you get in your shop, and I hope you have been inspired to make some sawdust. Thanks, guys.